All right, everybody, welcome back to Here for the Truth. I'm Joel Rafidi. Got my co-host Erasmus with me. As always, thank you so much for the incredible feedback on our last episode with Leanne Lopinto. Many of you reached out and expressed, the value that you got from that conversation. So thank you for sure. Today we have Dale Holmes in the house. We'll get into a number of topics: the nature of reality, the organic versus the artificial, dark versus light, simulation theory, the power of who you are, and so much more. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. Once again, doors to Rise Above the Herd round 9 are now officially open. We are taking in new students. Again, 15 to 20 spots only. Spots have already filled up over the weekend. There's only about 2/3 of the spots left already, with a month or so to go. So if you're down for this transformation, if you've been sitting on the fence about this, if you've been thinking about it, this is absolutely the time. This round starts March 26th, and I love that we get to keep doing this, keep offering this transformation, and keep doing this work. I don't know anything else that's as holistic in terms of an offering. Diving deep into shadow work, nervous system healing, self-esteem, and just knowing, loving, honoring yourself in the deepest levels, and moving forward into that outward expression of, that creative energy that you are. Anything you want to add to that, Rand?
That's it, man. Well said. Another good conversation. And again, I just want to echo what Joel said. Thank you to everyone for the support. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. So, when you enjoy these episodes, like them, share them, subscribe, wherever. We really appreciate it.
Totally. Enjoy this episode.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Erasmus.
Dale Holmes is an Australian speaker and co-host of the Sky to Earth conference that has been driven to make his voice public after years of studying the global cult and their agenda. Dale worked as a teacher in both Australia and abroad, specialising in working with disadvantaged and disengaged youth. This role guided his passion towards advocating for children and exposing the systems, people, and dark forces has failed them. His motivation to speak publicly was based on natural law principles and honoring the missing component, action. What knowledge we obtain and wisdom we have, we must share. Dale has focused on understanding evil and wanting to know the core genesis of this evil. The pursuit of understanding evil has led Dale to the polarity of love through asking the big questions. Who are we? What are we doing here? What is this reality? And where are we going? Dale, welcome to Here for the Truth.
Thanks, boys. Yep. Thanks for having me on. It's been
No worries, man.
What was it, a couple of months to make?
Yeah,
it's been about, awesome.
Been a couple of months in the making. It's good to have you here for sure, man. One way we always like to kick these episodes off is we want to dive deep into your personal hero's journey. So, what are some of those major transformative and catalyzing moments that I guess sparked your path and continues to?
Well, the one I speak about regularly is just when I was a kid, I used to go to bed every night, and Mum told me about heaven, and it was that whole tree before the seed or seed before the tree kind of thing, and I'd rack my brain over that. So I guess that was from a very young age. And I remember Mum reading me Matilda. If you read the book Matilda, Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
So I read that and The Witches when I was about 4 years old. Mum read it to me, and I don't know, something about that. I don't know. I think that's just that creativity and the imagination and what's possible that the human being can do. Because, she does all that telekinesis kind of stuff in that book where she can move objects and stuff like that. And I fundamentally believed that as a kid, just as a fictional book. And I remember watching the movie The Boy Who Could Fly. And then so I started, I guess, just with my own awareness, I just start leaving my body at will. So that was kind of the first thing. And then I had memories of like being bathed in the sink as a kid and being out of my body and like seeing from my mother down, like from her face. So it was kind of that sort of stuff. And then, I don't know. It was, what else was it? I was probably like you guys, just like always inquisitive. I never took anything on face value. I grew up in a a family that went to church we went to church every Sunday, just growing up in central Victoria or in small towns. That's kind of what you did, it was a community thing back then. It just kind of died off now. But so I was just absolutely obsessed and intrigued by religion and very much the Jesus story as well. And I guess it was probably, I was into like ancient civilizations and aliens and kind of all that stuff as a teenager. And then it was 9/11, like a lot of people, that was a big catalyst for me. I remember watching Loose Change when I was working at McDonald's as a 16-year-old, and so this DVD started doing the rounds before. I don't think there was even YouTube at that point. So it was like a DVD, and yeah, that was it from that point. And then I think when YouTube kicked in about 2005, and then I just listened to your talk with Michael Deciphering, actually, the one you just did a while ago.
Which one?
And
The first one, 78?
the anti-Semitism one, which,
okay.
which is super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love that. So actually he was one of the first books I bought. I bought his book called
Atlantis, Aliens, and Genetic Manipulation.
Yeah. I think was that his first book, Atlantis, Ancient Civilization. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I bought that, and then I went to university in 2004, and I actually wrote I did biblical studies for some ridiculous reason, for like as an elective, and I did like my whole essay where I was just citing all these bits from Michael Tazarian's book, and my lecturer's going, "Oh, this guy's quite interesting."
That's amazing.
So, and that was the benefit of going to university, because like I did education, and we had about 10 contact hours a week. Like, you do a 4-year degree and you're at university, contact hours, 10 hours. So you're basically at home all the time, or you're drinking or whatever you do with your spare time. And I just spent the whole time sitting at home listening to Coast to Coast AM. And then Alex Jones, all that old sort of shit that was around back then, Jordan Maxwell, and that, like, I just devour like 8 hours of that a day. So that was like my real education going to uni. Just had all this spare time. And I guess that's when I really got into the Satanism and pedophilia kind of stuff around then too, after I read the Franklin scandal. So we got into that sort of stuff and started learning about the global cult and like, what's the go? Why are all these Satanists everywhere? And what's really going on? What's behind all this? And and then I guess like when the whole COVID thing happened, it was old news, and and all my mates that have been hanging shit on me for 15, 20 years, my inbox was lighting up. They're all going, "What's happening? What's happening?" So,
well, that was a question. That was a question I wanted to ask. Like, as you were going down all these rabbit holes, during college, like, were you talking about it? Were you sharing it with your friends at that time, or was it more of a internal process and solo journey?
I had a couple. Like, you guys would know, you can pick the guys that are a little bit intrigued, so you just kind of throw stuff out there. And like most people, when you first start cracking open your consciousness, you become like a religious zealot, and you're just like an evangelical crazy, and you go through this period and then you're like, no one really wants to know. And I had a couple of mates that were a little bit interested in some stuff. I actually took a mate to go see Michael Tazarian actually in Melbourne in 2011.
Wow.
And I met him there. I had a chat with him because we got there early and had a ciggy with him out the front. That was pretty cool. But my mate went in.
Wow.
So he did I think it was like a 4-hour presentation on psychology and transhumanism. And like my mate, I think he lasted 40 minutes and he pissed off to the casino. Like, he couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I very much just kept it to myself, and then just online chat forums and shit for about for like 10, 15 years. And then I guess it was when the COVID stuff started happening, I saw all these, like the Australian, there weren't that many people around back in the day. It was like Bonacci and Max Egan, and there was some wacky stuff like Lisa Harrison and George Cavalli, but there wasn't much going around. And then, like, just out of the woodworks, all these people started piping up and talking about this COVID thing. And it's like, mate, I don't think these people know anything of what they're talking about. They haven't done their apprenticeship. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do some videos and like try and rip this through a few more layers. And then, yeah, I guess that's how it all started.
Yeah, man. Well, that's definitely when your name first popped up for me, was around that time as well. I think I saw some of your videos went viral and were circulating a fair bit. I want to like, so as someone who's like been like, on this journey for such a long time, like the truth seeking landscape and community has fucking shifted heaps. Hey, like in many ways, like, did you ever think that we'd be here at this point in time?
I had this thought in my head my whole life that I was going to see this transition, but I thought it was going to be in like my 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And like very selfishly, I think that's even why I became a teacher, because you get like 13 weeks holiday a year. I'm like, I'm just going to go travel and enjoy stuff. And I remember it was like 2019. Because my brother he hasn't jabbed any of his kids, and they were struggling with kindergarten, family daycare. They can't get the tax benefit and all that living in Victoria. And there was some article and they were clamping down again on like flu jabs, and I'm like, I think it's happening soon. So it came a lot quicker, but it's unreal where it is now. But I mean, it's such an imbalanced shit show, the whole truth movement. I don't want any part of it, to be honest. I kind of just happy doing my own thing. But yeah, like it's weird, like kind of watching the stages of initiation that people are going through. Yeah, and just seeing like the real emotional imbalance of the psyche, but understanding where these people are at as well. And I think it's a process that kind of needs to happen. But yeah, we're in for a wild time ahead. It's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, like, I guess when it comes to like the nature of reality, like the big questions that you've asked here, who are we? What are we doing here? What is this reality? Like, where are we going? Can you just help us, I guess, give us more of a broader understanding of like, where you're coming from on this, your perception, your take, and your angle on understanding that?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, yeah, it's a long one to explain.
Where do we start?
All right, start with who are we? Let's start with that.
Who are we? Wow, who am I? I am everything that I'm the sum total of everything I've been, done, and seen for all eternity in a human body. That's how I see myself. And I think that it's a good perspective to start from. But for me, like when I was looking at the nature of reality, like I read Holographic Universe and stuff, and then obviously got into like David Icke's work and quantum physics, and you're like, you come to this conclusion that the building blocks of reality is a hologram, right? So that made a lot of sense to me. And then this is where like the whole simulation theory kind of taps into, because it's basing itself off a hologram. But then the moment that really struck for me, I was around 2010, and I read a book called Our Journey Home by George Kavasilis, and it was the first time I've ever heard it explaining holographic reality in a different term. And he basically calls it compression. And this is what I kind of understood to be true without saying I know, but it's what made the most sense to me. And if you're looking at the hologram and everything being a smaller part of the whole, and then I started looking into Joseph Campbell's work, The Hero's Journey, and like it's following the exact same blueprint that we descend to go to figure out separation, basically. So the whole experience within the universe is separation and unity, and it's a journey that we all go through, and that the whole descension down that we get to the point of the human being is actually you're a compressed hologram that's containing the whole within it, but you've got everything you've seen, done, and been on every multi-dimensional layer all within one body that has amnesia. So I see it as like the human being is like, it's a walking universe. So you are the entire universe, the sum total of the universe in a human body. And then, it gives so much power back to you when you have this understanding, or that I came to this understanding. And then I started looking a bit into like, what is this, God of the Bible or the God of religions? And then simulation theory kind of kicked in. And then I started looking at, well, if everything's duality in this universe here, we can kind of agree that everything is duality in the way that it's made up, and even light itself is duality, because that's how you create a vibrational code or a vibrational pattern, is dark and light. So I'm like, well, if there is a universal creator, then there must be a mimic of that too. Within duality, there must be a counter opposite. And this is what I've been talking about a lot the last couple of years. And I was kind of strategically putting out this information, like trying to like drop a bit to like see if anyone kind of catch on to this stuff. So I do think that we're almost existing in this war that is like separation, and it's the mimic versus the real. And this is what I've been speaking a lot about lately, that how to differentiate between these two realities, because then AI is a big part of that comes into this as well too, that is actually a form of this this opposing energy, the opposite of life, but it's also part of the dualistic nature as well.
So like when you look, I guess, to try to help people understand, like when you look around, like what are the things that you consider like part of the mimicry, and what are some of the things that you consider part of the organic, I guess?
Well, I think the mimicry for me, it comes down to, it's really the energy of jealousy, which is why I bring up like, the Old Testament God and that. So I think there's like 40 something references to this jealous God. And, you can research all this stuff, or you can see it within your own life. And when you see a jealous person, what's the, Mike Tyson even spoke about when he was younger that, he had this jealousy, but he would try and imitate or mimic the person that he's jealous of. So if you have a creating force, then the opposing force is going to mimic that force as well. And it's all built on this hierarchy of either like projecting up and projecting down. And I've tried so much to stop doing this, but like we all do it, right? Like even like I just spoke about Michael Deciphering, and someone that like I very much, I would say, projected up to in an unhealthy way. And then, I've got to meet a lot of these different people that I looked up to, and then you're like, well, they're just another bad bum in the shower, really. Once you get to, once you sit down with some of these people you looked up to, you're like, oh, he's just a dude, isn't he? Just a dude, and he's got his own story, and then we project down too, right? Mm-hmm. That's another big part of it. So I think that ultimately that mimic force is like, it's projecting up to what it wants to be, and then projects down to those that it wants under itself, right? But it's trying to mimic or be something that it can never be.
Got you. So like if this mimic force like isn't organic, then like what's the source of it?
Well, this is a question. I think it resides in technology. And you can even look in the universe based on like carbon or silica. And so it's weird that we call AI, right? Like, why do we call it artificial? What is that, right? It exists. It's clearly...
But we're saying it's non-human, I guess.
It's not human, yeah. So, you could call it, or what else could you call it? You could call it alien technology, but I think like technical or technological intelligence is probably a better term for it. So it's an intelligence that exists within the universe. It's based on technology. Now, this goes into the whole thing that humans did not invent AI. That AI is a part of the universe, right? It's also a part of duality. So it's just a consciousness within the universe that is based on technology. And even if like in Terminator, they always kill the Terminator at the end of all the movies, mm-hmm. And then the Terminator comes. It's kind of telling you in those movies that you can never kill AI. AI resides within a certain part of the universe that exists within technology that can actually never be destroyed, right? So it's part of I look at it as part of a finite. So that we are infinite or eternal that exist outside of it, but we're also within it. So we're within a finite. Mm-hmm. So if you know what I'm saying there, like,
and it only exists within it, you're saying, within the finite.
Yeah, it only exists within the finite. So it's trying to mimic and replicate the infinite and build its own structure in a finite realm. So have you seen that sentient world simulation? Like, that's the thing that blew me apart when I read
I
that
haven't.
one.
No.
Have you seen that?
No.
Fuck, man, this shit was crazy. So you know, I was saying, like, reality compresses itself.
Yeah.
And an example of that would be, so say the Milky Way galaxy, if we're going into space exists, right? If we just leave the whole space doesn't exist thing away, because I know that's big now. I think that's caught a lot of people. But anyway, so if you
Well,
say,
I mean, where are you on that? Because for me, like, it's red flags all over it for me. Like, I don't lean that way whatsoever. That's just where I'm at.
I think that it's this exact force I'm talking about, because it wants you to believe in a finite. So if it says that, yeah. So I mean, there's something out there, right? Even if it's a dome, what exists beyond the dome? If you're saying that there's nothing else but the dome, you're automatically admitting that you are in a finite construct. And if you are this technological intelligence entity that has trapped these eternal souls within a finite realm, which is really just a perceptual realm, you don't even need to look at it as physical, then wouldn't that be the perfect program to get people to believe that there is nothing outside of it?
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, yeah, if you so reality compressions, if you even look at the universal creator, if as a singular being, that if it comes down and compresses everything it's done on that level into a galaxy, being the Milky Way, and then it compresses, so that's everything that's been done and seen. Then it goes into the Earth. So that's the whole galaxy compressed into one planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes to the human that's compressed again, right?
Yeah.
So I started looking, I'm like, well, if AI is the mimic, wouldn't it be following the same universal blueprint? And wouldn't it be following the same formula of reality compression? And then I'll come across this thing called the sentient world simulation, which it came out of Purdue University. I think it's Indiana, but it was from Department of Defense funding and freaking DARPA. Like, they all come out of DARPA, right? So, and basically what it was I think it's about 15 years old now, and we saw, like, through the whole COVID period that everything was run on computer models, like. Everything from the virus itself to the response to everything. And it was, I think it was the first incursion of what they want with the technocracy, right? That we don't even have experts, that it's run by a computer model, and, you know, the politicians wipe their hands clean because it's all been done by AI and modeling. So what they did with this sentient world simulation was they got every single person that's connected to the internet on the planet represents one node within this thing, and it's basically self-replicating, self-growing. This online, it's basically an online world. So, say you, Joel, you'll have your node on there, and that's got every single thing that you've ever Googled, and now with the voice technology, everything that you've said, all your purchasing records, all your GPS data, everything. So. And this is the whole thing that AI is doing. It's because it's so jealous, it must know everything about you, every single step. It must know your predictable behaviors.
Well, it sounds like a narcissist, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, if you can control the human brain, then everything you do is going to be predictable. So what they did was the Department of Defense started using this, or at least this was a cover story for why they were using it, in the Iraq and Afghanistan war. So they would use it if they were going to bomb a terrorist target. They would have all the nodes, and then they call them clusters of nodes. So they'll have a whole cluster of nodes on, like, Sunnis, whole cluster of nodes on Shiites, whole cluster of nodes on education systems, water treatment plants, and this is why everything must be connected to the internet, because, I saw one the other day. There's ones in Victoria, they're connecting the bins now. Your bin that goes out, it's got a little RFID chip on your bin, because they want to know how much you're consuming, what you're consuming, how often you're putting your bin out. And people are like, well, why do they need this level of human control? And I think people are misunderstanding that it's it's a synthetic technological system that everything must be connected to the internet. So anyway, with this, what they would do is if they bomb something, they could run it through the computer model and they would know exactly how the population would react and all these different nodes and clusters of nodes were. So then you think of like the whole COVID operation. They know if we do this, this is how the population will react. When the Canberra protests got too big, you retract, right? Because it's all been done through computer modeling.
And
So-
even like the you know, what we see in the algorithm that's pushing the news is obviously connected to this and is, you know,
Exactly.
either putting more pressure or taking pressure depending on what the model's coming up with.
Yeah. And ultimately, the only way to really hack this system, because it's all been fed, we're all feeding this in, right? With every single thing we do online is feeding this system. So it's all feeding off our predictability. And, you know, like how many times you see these articles on Facebook and they're clearly just there to get responses in the comments and then everyone feeds it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only way to really hack that is the intuition. And it's like, you know, going away, losing that emotional component and then just going off the intuition. What do I think I should do? And a lot of the times your intuition will tell you to break a pattern that you've been doing, but the program will want to bring you back to what's reliable and what you know.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, I think many of us have said this, that when we're, you know, we have our phones around us, we're talking about a product, and then all of a sudden we have an advertisement of the product, or maybe we're not even talking about it, we're just thinking about it. And so they're not actually even hearing it, but because of these nodes and all the information put in, they're able to predict things that you'd be interested in. And so they place this in front of you, even though you didn't say it or type it, but you just thought it. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, So it's not just the actual information coming in, but because of all this predictability and the algorithm and the data coming in, they can guess almost what's going on in your mind.
Well, that's a really good point, because there's either two options there for me. It's either you're already chipped. Wait, are we still there? Yeah.
Yep.
You're either already chipped, you're already synced with the cloud, or two, you're that predictable that it knows what you're thinking before you think it.
Yeah.
And that is a scary thought, right?
It is scary, because I've had this conversation where it's like, listen, I did not type it. I did not speak it into my phone and it showed up, but I had thought it. So what the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big question, and then you start to think, well, how much of my beliefs have been instilled into me? And like, this is a process I'm in now. I can't say anything definitively anymore, right? Even after looking at this shit for so long, I've almost just been stripped everything back recently. And I'm just in this process of like, is this real or is this not real, right? And I think even like you can research forever, but at the end of the day, for me, it's all coming back to my intuition. And I think that's the real power, right? So what is even this intuition? For me, that is like, that's part of the self that's eternal. It's like speaking to the heart, right? And then the whole point is like, you should act on that. But there's all these, but what if, but you know, these things get in the way. And you look so much now how AI, it's completely focused on the brain. It's not focused really anywhere else, right? Yeah. And even what we saw through the jabs and stuff, how much it's affected the gut microbiome and the gut flora, which is really, it's not an attack on the gut, it's an attack on the brain. Like, did you see that Dr. Kazan and stuff? She was showing that these people have zero bifidobacteria after they've had this jab. And she's talking about like this epidemic they're expecting in adult onset autism, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these kind of things, right? And I think that was the autism kids that, you know, first started around the time that I was born, about 85, you know, they're my age now. So this is the first generation that have, you know, hitting middle age that were, to me, it looks like the prototype human 2.0, the first step coming through. And it's all an attack on the brain, because I think that technological intelligence only has access through the brain. That's like, the more I'm seeing it now, it's all just to access the human brain, right? And I guess to cut off the heart.
Now, a short break from the episode.
Round 9, rise above the herd. Doors are open. This is another opportunity to really take your life to the next level, to do the deep work, to walk your authentic path unapologetically. You know what we're about. We talk about it all the time. Go to riseabovetheherd.co. You can read all about the program. You can read the testimonials. Like, just can't believe that this is our 9th time running it, but we're excited to kind of continue to take individuals, motivated individuals on a transformational journey. People that want to take more ownership over their lives and really put into action their deepest dreams and desires. So if you're curious to jump on this ride with us, riseabovetheherd.co.
Yeah, absolutely. Or for ease, the link is in the show notes. Limited spots as always, and they are filling up. So if you're down, get in there.
Back to the episode.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I was just thinking because, there's a discussion around, okay, when we talk about autism, what causes that? A lot of people are like 100%, oh, it's the vaccines. But, there are other people that understand the role consciousness plays in one's health and how you react to acute stressful situations can cause adaptations, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's interesting that the time that the Childhood Vaccine Act came into play in the mid 80s, and they started increasing the number of vaccines, is also the time that technology kind of started to take off as well. In early 90s, internet, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how that plays into all this as well. That it's not just this, material particle that maybe is being injected into you, but also how you're being impacted, how your consciousness is being impacted by this complete alteration of society and how we take in the world through our senses.
Yeah, well, I used to work at schools, so we had a very high percentage of kids with ASD because I worked in alternative educational settings, so we had a lot of kids with ASD, and I had a couple that I know of that were never jabbed and were very high on the autism spectrum. Mm-hmm. So it's not just that.
Yeah,
I know other people that don't have. The kids aren't jabbed and they got asthma and eczema and all these other things, right? So there's obviously the environmental toxin component. Then there's the trauma of the mother. Like Dr. Graham Dowling speaks a lot about, the first stages of even the mother getting an ultrasound, and then the stress of the mother, and then even if you get flu while pregnant as well too, it stops this boost of testosterone that the baby's supposed to get after a certain period of time, and this helps the brain develop. So if those processes don't happen too, that can lead to frontal lobe damage of particularly males, which can lead to autism too. So there's so much more to it. But he's done big presentations on how the impact of gaming, and not even gaming now, but just having a phone, which is everyone, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they've just molded the human brain. But what he speaks about, I can't remember the term he uses, but basically all the different parts of the brain they're not connecting with each other anymore. They're not communicating with each other. And what we're starting to see is the human go into like their internal world more than being able to interact with the external. And this, look at the rise of transgenderism with it completely coincided, the next wave of it, with the TikTok coming into the West. So pandemic starts 2020, TikTok enters the West, like it was like a week apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did a great interview with Simon Esler, who created a documentary called Cut, Daughters of the West. And we dive into this subject, and even just how, the popularity of just, plastic surgery started even in, young teens, and then social media and Facebook came along. Of course, TikTok, you just mentioned, and the impact that has from like a social contagion and mass hysteria standpoint, that impacts young developing minds.
Well, it makes you think how many of these things in culture, like even within the last 50, 60 years, were any of them organic? Were they just overriding what was a natural energy. This is what I tend to think, that there was a natural energy coming through, and then what they do, especially being a mimic, is you counter it. You know, very much like the, like the hippie movement that come out of the '60s, and then what Dave McGowan, spoke about, all those bands that come out of Laurel Canyon and stuff like that. So look, if you remember, no one had breast implants till Pamela Anderson. When was Pamela Anderson big? Like 92, 93?
Yeah, you're looking, the 90s.
It was all like everyone wanted the big boobs and the blonde hair. And then they kind of scrapped that. And then they went like the Kim K fat ass in the early 2000s, right? And you watch these cultural trends creep in, right? And even the Taylor Swift one now too, this just screams to me of like Beatlemania, watching the, I don't know if you've seen like the crowd reactions and stuff in Melbourne, but it's, it's just got like Tavistock Beatlemania written all over it.
Well, again, we talk about duality, and I feel like you talk about nature and non-nature and anti-nature, and I just think we're way too on one side of the spectrum. And so what impacts does that have on your biology, your psychology, your consciousness? Like, people are literally plugged into their devices. They're not spending time outside. They're not connecting to their intuition. They're not with themselves. And so, what does that do to a society? And I think we're seeing it over the last, few decades.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but like for me, it has to counter back, right? It has to counter back.
It's already happening.
The public's so, even the unbegun public is so aware of how disconnected we've become now, right? No one knows their neighbors. Kids play video games not at each other's houses anymore. They play them all online. It's quite sad. We were lucky, I think, like that millennial, I was born in the mid '80s, and we really grew up with, we had no tech, right? We still used to have those little phones. We had to do those.
We're the last generation that grew up without the internet.
Yeah, I was born in 1980.
Really did,
I was born in '80, man. So
we're the last people that know what that was like.
You were born '80. You're perfect. You're perfect. So
I'm 90.
Yeah, you're 90. I remember traveling to America when I was just turned 20. So it would have been, what was it? 2005. And so I traveled overseas for like 3.5 months. I had no phone. I don't even know, and it was really like, Mum, when I moved house a couple of years ago, Mum had like all my emails that I sent her, which is really cool. So I like to read back on like these emails that I wrote 20 years ago. Because you remember that, like going to internet cafes, you'd have to go and you'd probably go, I'd go to one every couple of weeks just to send Mum an email and say like, yeah, I'm alive. Like, this is where we are.
After college, I backpacked Europe for a few months in 2002, and I was just like going to internet cafes, And in 2008, I took about a year off and traveled. But I didn't have I wouldn't call it a smartphone, but I had a BlackBerry Curve. It was a little bit more advanced, but not what we have now. So it was a different experience, even traveling.
It was. I'm really grateful that we're on that cusp, because especially around the age that we are, because we really got to see both worlds more than any other generation. Like I remember traveling around America. I did the whole East Coast with like a book. It was like a map, like on the whole. Look, I don't even think I'm capable of that anymore. But yeah, like I actually think we're really privileged to be that age we are. Again, like we've seen the cusp of both worlds. And being in education too, like I saw, even from when I started teaching to like when I finished up, the massive change in the kids over, that 10, 15 year period was just huge. And like I haven't taught now it's been 3 years, and like the stuff I'm hearing coming out of the schools, I don't know if I want to go back.
Yeah, man, I'm hearing a lot from people who work with children and teenagers, like the impact 2020 until now has had on them, especially kids being masked up, being isolated. There's just a arrested development all around. from many ages. You know, I talk to people who teach like freshman year in high school, and they're like, these kids are so immature and not developed
Yeah.
in the same way as their peers from periods in the past.
It's a bit of a contrast, so because I feel some of these kids are really real mature. Like there's yeah, you'll see both see both
Mhm.
polarities. But I look at the school system too, because I've still got I've got a number of good friends that are teachers, and I think this is like many industries, but particularly with education, because they're dealing with kids and how much different these kids are from even 5 years ago. That I think it's like 3 to 4 years the average teacher graduate lasts in Victoria now. So they're having huge troubles. Like I've had schools trying to ring me to get me to teach because they can't get teachers. And like when I graduated, I remember putting in for a position in a local school, and there was 150 applicants. Like you had to be really good to get a teaching job, or you had to like piss off out into some small little country town to get a gig. And now they're picking up third year education students that are still at uni because they're so desperate. What I'm hearing from most of the teachers is they can't deal with they spend no time teaching, and that student behavior is so bad. Student mental health. There's always 4 or 5 kids away every day from the classroom. It's dramatically changed.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I guess there's no doubt that the psychology of the crowd is being intentionally manipulated with malignant agendas to drive people to live incredibly inauthentic lives. And I think, like you hearkened at, more than ever, with more urgency, we need intuition, more than ever before, to bring that into picture. And like, we just have to know ourselves. We have to know our uniqueness, our unique essence, our unique way of being in the world. Otherwise, everything is ready, waiting at the gates to tell us who we are, to tell us how to live, to tell us how to behave. And I think it's never been more urgent for, people to have self-knowledge, self-love, and courage.
How do you find the kids in Mexico? Because I just been in Thailand for 2 months, and I mean the kids over there are hooked to the tech as much as ours are, but probably not as much as ours are. But in Thailand, the kids are kind of. I was having a conversation when I was over there, and I was talking with another guy who's the same age as me, and we're watching the kids play at the market one night, and we're like, oh, it's kind of like how we used to do it, right? Because they were just running around. The parents didn't know where they were. Do you know what I mean? They've kind of got, it's safer over in Thailand too than like in Australia. At least the parents have the perception that it's safer, that they allow the kids to run and play. Like, how's it in Mexico? Is it similar?
Dude, like this is a completely different world to Australia. It's just completely stripped away of like all the bullshit, all the projection, all the cultural conditioning. And like people here are just living their normal lives, like the normal that I know, like the normal that I'm used to and grew up with, like you said. It's like they're just kids. There's beautiful beings just being themselves, moving through the world. And like a lot of the families that we've connected with, they've left their home countries for the same reason. So many of them are also homeschooled and just, getting this beautiful experience of traveling abroad, being immersed in different cultures. Their parents are stay-at-home entrepreneurs as well. In terms of, I haven't fully been inside a Mexican village and, observed the kids, and so I can't give you those kind of footnotes. But generally speaking, man, like the experience that I was having in Australia is not this. It's not the same experience. It's completely different. Like I got here, man. It's like the deepest breath of fresh air, because I just don't have those senses that something is going to give here. And even if it does, bro, it's so far down the road in terms of where we are at in Australia.
Yeah. It's the more you travel the world, you start to realize how quickly in decline the West is, and particularly the Five Eyes countries.
Yeah.
Like Australia's in rapid decline now. I've been going to Thailand for many, many years, and Thailand just keeps improving. The infrastructure's better, the healthcare system. There's no, barely any crime. They're actually sorting out the sex industry and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
You know, it's like, it's a good place to live, and a lot of the world's like that. And it's, you know, people that live in the UK and Australia and Canada, these sort of like they're truly unaware.
But they think
of,
they're privileged. They think they're living the pinnacle of human existence. That's the thing, right? Yeah.
But and there's also this inbuilt belief that times will always be good, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but people don't see that. You know, first world countries can fall. This is happening. You know, it's happened to Venezuela. Happened to, you know, Argentina was thriving once and then collapsed. It and when it collapses, it can be very, very quick, right?
Yep. Dramatic.
Yeah.
It's and look, it's obviously it's very purposeful. That, you know, that they're collapsing these certain countries, and I guess that brings up a whole different question as to why, right? I mean,
Well,
like,
I see them as the testing grounds, like as opposed to like collapse. Like I see them literally as the primary testing facilities for their next step, which I don't think is going to ever take a foothold everywhere. But this is
No.
where the foothold obviously is.
yeah, it's it is weird though, right? Because particularly the Five Eyes countries, you know. You know, there's because you know, like obviously like Maurice Strong and those kind of things, and they spoke about the post-democratic, post-industrialized West. You know, when they set up the EU, you know, like 60 years ago, that, you know, they've been planning this destruction of the West. And I mean, you only need to look at the resources in Australia, how raped this country is. This should be Dubai on steroids. Australia. There's only 25 million people here. We've got the most resources anywhere in the world.
Ridiculous.
And like, inflation is through the roof. You can hardly buy groceries anymore. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, I'm a smoker too. I just left Thailand at $3 a pack. Come back here, they're $38. So it's like 15 times, almost 15 times higher for the same product.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I actually, you know, with the whole with the whole Satanist ideology where they do mirroring, right?
Can you speak into that on a general basis before you go where you're going?
Yeah, so they do, and it's not just it's not a satanic thing. It basically, I did a whole video on this that I called the kiss. So a lot of movies will represent this, and the kiss in the movie, like if you're thinking in the Matrix, I showed the Adjustment Bureau, you know, Cinderella, all these kind of things at the end when there's a merging, and this is a unity, and it represents, you know, the feminine and the masculine, or the unseen and the seen, right? Or you could say the intuition and the intellect, the two merging together, because it's not, when I was having a go at the brain before, it's not to have a go at the brain, it's that the intellect needs to merge with, you know, with wisdom or the intuition. So, you know, they use mirrors in symbolism all the time, and they use the water as a mirror as well. You know, like in the Lion King or in the Neverending Story, where he has to meet himself and he just looks into a mirror. You see this all the time.
Yeah, well, it's the classic mythos of Narcissus as well, who sees himself for the first time in the water. Yeah.
Yeah. And like even, you know, at the 9/11, you know, where they do the destruction and then they create the pool. They go on near the shrine as well.
Yep, been there.
And I get part of that is to represent the woman and, you know, the birth canal. And that's why, you know, 9/11 was the Twin Towers, and then they've placed in the water. So it's all about like that rebirth and bringing in the new. So where was I going to go with that? The mirroring. Oh, right. That's what I was going to say. So that, yeah, they flip things, and they do this a lot in time cycles too. So if you look at the precession of the equinox being like 24,000 years, then they have like their 3,000 years. So it's the same as reality compression, cycle in cycle in cycle in cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And they do them within like the 100-year cycle too. So you know, like the Kennedy and the Lincoln assassinations, how that, you know, there's so many of those correlations. And you're like, well, if anyone, are they that crazy occultists that they got everything down to the perfect T of like, you know, the exact dates, how they died, where they got shot, the car they were driving in, like, or is there something else at play here, right? Is this some kind of like simulated timelines that continually repeat? So they do the Jubilee too. So the Jubilee is half of the 100-year time cycle that repeats. And there's whole books on this, how these 100-year time cycles repeat a lot, right? So within the 50, they do a jubilee or a reverse. So whatever happened in the previous cycle will then be flipped. So there's like a lot of people kind of thinking with the Paris Olympics now coming up, that there could be a repeat of what happened in Munich, particularly now with Israel and Palestine in the news again, if there was going to be some kind of, incident like what happened in Munich in the 70s. But with, so if you're looking now, what I was going to get to with the mirroring or the flip effect is that, for what we can see within this larger cycle, that control of the planet has been dominated in the Northern Hemisphere. And that, it makes sense because most of the landmass is in the Northern Hemisphere, but, not all of it. But I almost saw this as like the Taylor Swift ritual. I don't know if I'm looking into this too much, but she's done, they've blown her up as this huge celebrity. And then immediately after that hey, she's come down to Australia. And I think what they're doing is they flip the civilization control from the north to the south, right? And I think this is where like the whole Antarctica kind of thing could come into play.
In what regards?
So if you collapse and then reset society, so you collapse the Northern Hemisphere and then you set up the new base of operations in the Southern Hemisphere.
Okay. So there'll be
And
like there'll be a New York City of Antarctica that everyone's going to flock to.
I mean, like, Antarctica is all theory, isn't it? Like, no one fucking knows. No one knows, man.
There's so much we don't know.
I mean, we've all read all the stuff. I mean, like, I got really into it being like ancient Atlantis years ago, but who knows, man?
Yeah, I mean, we have to pick and choose our rabbit holes. Only so much bandwidth.
Yeah, we do. And I think also this goes into the whole conversation around like, where is your energy best used? And where do these people that are involved in this global cult, whatever, that want to help move society, where do they want you to take your energy? And like, we talked earlier at the beginning of this episode, this whole idea of this truther community, the freedom community, which I agree with you. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm just an individual trying to do the things that I'm interested in, live my life, feel empowered, etc. So it's like going down these rabbit holes. Like if it's your business, if you have like a YouTube channel or a podcast, cool, I get it. But for so many people, like, sure, it's nice to know and be curious and entertain yourself, but like, where are you really putting your life force energy and what are you building and what are you creating? Because that's what it's going to take to kind of combat a lot of this stuff that we've been faced for much of human history, if we're going to come to some new age or golden age or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, we have to take more ownership over our mental space and our energy and focus on self-knowledge and focus on creating and producing the things that we wanted to create and produce in this world, and not just waste our time with distraction after distraction after distraction. And I think more people are getting hip to that. And the people that I like hanging out with that are in this world that we're in are people that are more empowered, don't live in the doom and gloom, are optimistic, and understand that there are solutions.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree anymore. And like the conference, Madeline and myself have been running. It's pretty much been the theme of the whole thing. And I guess we kind of created a bit of a closed community just for some level of sanity and to get rid of all the bullshit away from the conversation, which has been like, it's been so refreshing. And we had amazing speakers on, and we kind of don't bring anyone on unless we have this value of balance and not. I was talking before about the projecting up and down too, because there's so many distortions, and if one person, if they don't believe one, there's one tiny bit they've got a problem with, they just tune out, and it's like you've missed everything.
Yeah,
and then so I saw this so much when again when the COVID era started. And everyone's like, oh, everything's Satanism, right? Everything. So I'm like, people turned away from watching football or, just doing
watching movies.
Yeah, my mates, they're going, oh, it's all bread and circus. I'm like, It's like, no, actually, once you know it's bread and circus, you actually transmute it and you can just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably have more friends that don't engage in any of these conversations. And I like having that balance of just being able to do mundane, things. Cause I've had other people that, they get into the whole health field and then they're like, alcohol's the devil. Coffee's a devil, which it kind of is, but and all
that's a whole other conversation we could get into.
Yeah. But it's these such extremes, and I think that's what I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on the whole carnivore diet thing, but to me it was just a counterbalance to the distortion of the vegan agenda.
Yeah.
So this is what happens. So and it's the way the universe works with light duality, that if you create such a counterbalance here, it's going to come up. And people are like, well, how did Andrew Tate come about? I'm like, well, they feminized men and made it so obvious that they were deliberately doing that then the system provides the counter opposite of like, he's not a true masculine. He's another distortion that holds some aspects of what it is to be masculine. And people will gravitate to that because it's a polar opposite of what they're saying is wrong. And, I speak about this all the time now with this huge push to Christianity now too, because to me, it's just a complete counterbalance to them showing you, the system showing you open Satanism everywhere. And no one can see that the distortion of them showing Satanism is driving the polar opposite to the other side, right? And that you're not sovereign on either side.
Yeah. Then they lump in astrology and divination and tarot and the I Ching and everything that is extraneous to that system in with Satanism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had an ex-girlfriend. It was a Christian, and I told her I got me astrological chart done, and she's like, "Well, you can't do that. It's Satanism." I'm like, "How the fuck's that Satanism?" And then I brought up numerology. She said, "That's Satanism." I'm like, "There's a book in the Bible called Numbers. Like, what are you?"
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm like, you can read the whole. You can read the Bible entirely as astrotheology.
That's right.
You can read it entirely numerology, and I don't think it's either one of those things. It's those things because it's a layered book.
Yeah,
but it's just dogma, dogma in all types. It goes with me. I cut it off. That's it. Right.
Yeah. It's extremism and, a single-minded focus. I was in Acapulco this past week with some friends of ours that we probably know and fellow speakers. And we were having this conversation. Like, there's just an imbalance. There are people that are so single-mindedly focused that they can't even see they're unconscious to the opposite, the other side. And so they're not standing between the two opposites in duality. They don't have access to both sides. They're completely their psyche's been hijacked by one side versus the other, and there's no room for nuance. There's no room for discernment, and it's just an incomplete view. And these are the people that get triggered the most.
Yeah. Well, this is what I've been talking about, because I see this as it's like that's an overlay of the natural energy, because there must be natural dark and light. So I'm seeing this as it's like the false distortion. So it's still offering dark and light. But another one that I keep seeing, tell me if you I'm sure you've come across this. I just want to be with my tribe or my people, and then reject all the normies. This is another one, right? So
yeah.
They don't want to hear a complete rejection of all society. I'm just going to stick to my little insular group of people that think how I think. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. It's like, that's the problem.
Hey man, I know I've been there at a time, especially
I was just
early where it was just like, fuck this. I just want to be with people that align with me. Now, the reality is there are people that align with me in certain ways, but won't in other ways. So I don't need to have all my friends be like, I gotta go down. What happened in 9/11 and what's going on in COVID? Like, cool. There are people that are on this so-called truth or conspiracy community I wouldn't want to fucking spend a minute with, but then there are people who don't know about this stuff but are loving, good-hearted, kind people, creative people that are living their life and doing their thing. So again, like,
it's because there's more balance. Those individuals actually have more balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't need to talk. I have different friends for different reasons. I don't need to have this conversation we're having with every person I meet on the street. Hi, my name's Erasmus. Did you know? Oh my God. No, like, hey, how you doing? Oh, cool. Oh, wow. You like that kind of music? Oh, you like that food? Oh, wow. You have 2 kids? Oh, wow. You're interested in this subject? I'm interested in that subject too.
Yeah.
Well,
do you know what? I was having a chat to Tom Barnett recently. We were talking about like what we were like at high school, and he's pretty much the same as me. Like I had all these different groups of mates. I could kind of fit in with all these different types of groups, and like not one group would ever give me everything that I wanted.
Yeah, me too.
And I've kind of been like that my whole life. Like I have my football friends, and like we talk about football stuff and go out and that. And then I had like different like spiritual circles with my other friends, and I found it really hard to intertwine and bring these people together. Like I felt like they could never be friends, but I could jump between all these different other ones. But I think I think it says a lot about a person that can adapt, because you're still yourself, right? Like I'm no less myself when I'm with someone that doesn't want to talk about this sort of stuff, right? It's just another part of myself. You don't need to be angelical with everyone. Like I spent two months in Thailand, and we basically spoke about fitness and food and fucking traveling and shit, the whole time. And it was nice. It was just a nice refreshing to be in that sort of crowd.
Yeah. You said earlier, the universe is within. We have so many aspects of ourselves. And so depending on the situation, I think the more expanded, the more conscious, the more integrated person can pull on these different parts of themselves to engage, to interact, to have success in a given situation, in a given circumstance.
Yeah. To me, it's a signpost of wholeness, and having awakened and gained access to, the more archetypes, more constellations, so to speak, if we're talking about as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yeah. Well, it's this is why I used to speak a lot about Trump too, because people don't understand the whole Trump phenomena because if you really follow the hero's journey story too, you can see that whatever Trump is, that he's a created archetype or a manifested archetype of what some people want to be, right? He's playing out the hero, whether you believe he is or not, but the story of him is he's playing out this hero. And then people, as we do with the movies, you project yourself into what you want to be, right? Without taking the step or the action yourself. And you see that through someone else. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, this is why I think that, they do within religion too.
Well, that's energy harvesting, in my opinion. It's done vicariously without you actually engaging will or action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think worship is the ultimate energy harvest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know if we can go down that track, but
let's go there, bro. Expand.
All right, where do we go? Yeah, so like this kind of I've found this hard to explain over time, but I'll give it a crack. But because I've seen, again, with so many going towards dogmatic religious beliefs and stuff too, and I mean I just got to call it as it is. But like, I've seen so many people turn to religion within the last few months, right? And it tends to be most of the ones that are really hooked to the new age that then fall over to organized religion. It's like, oh, you were in balance the whole time, right? So you're coming over to this other energy. And if you look at what Satanists do, when they truly worship Lucifer, right? They worship this dark being, although it is the light being.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they doing? Because you always hear about in the conspiracy circles about the looshing of this energy, and that it feeds off low vibrational human emotion, and this is this whole feeding mechanism. But you never hear about the light side, because again, if we're talking about duality too, whatever is expressed on the dark, there must be a light distortion as well too. There's a good and there's an organic dark and light, but then the distortion on the light is worship, right? So the worship and the ultimate form of this too is, I think, is the one creator, which is in everything. And, they speak about, all these different religions speak about the one creator of all. And for me, this was a crazy giveaway of what that being and what that entity possibly is, and what actually created that. Because Satanists will say that they, that Satanism is just a worship of the ego, right? It's a collection of the ego that actually that feeds or creates Lucifer. So what's the ultimate ego on the light side of worship? You have a being that wants nothing but, solicitation of worship.
And your total devotion 24 hours a day.
Total devotion. And if you take into account, like if you think of what I said before, that if you're a walking universe, if you're a compressed and sum total of everything you've been, done and seen, what is the force of that? Of you saying that everything I've been, done and seen is yours, you are the creator of all of that, I give all of that to you.
And I owe it all to you.
I owe it all to you. Yeah. It's to me, it's
you are the reason.
So that's if you look at that God figure, to me, that is the height of ego.
Yeah, man. We've discussed this before. To me, it's the height of narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just being able to differentiate that too, is what's true creation and what is the false is relationship, right? If you are in an equal and loving and co-creating relationship with this universe or whatever it is, then why would you solicit and why would you demand worship, right, off your equal?
No, you'd walk side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it brings up a lot of questions.
Yeah. No masters above, no slaves below.
Yeah.
Dale, what's the meaning of life according to you?
Adventure.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. Well, I think adventures are key, because the other part of it is, for me, I feel it's to learn sovereignty, to know what sovereignty is. But you already know it's just amnesia. So again, if we go back to this God being, or the false God, and within biblical dogma, that I think the whole falsity of this reality that we're in is the belief of sin, that we're born of sin and the original sin. And I think there is a component, again, within duality, that there is a point of sin, but to say you are born of sin,
to say that your very existence is guilt-ridden from the get-go.
So this takes away all the adventure component, right? It means before you were even created, you've come in of sin. And the other part for me is that you're either eternal or you're a created being. You can't be both, right? So this being will say you were created by God, but you can't be eternal, you can't be infinite if you're created. Mm-hmm. You're either one or the other, right?
Yeah, and same goes for Earth, right? Same goes for the planet. If that which can be created can be destroyed, how can you possibly believe that this planet can be taken away by someone with a snap of their fingers? Like, that's a big stretch of the imagination, my friend.
Yeah. So I mean, who created it? So you take away this sin component. I think the whole, if you have a population that believes in original sin, then you must have a savior. And I think this is the whole game, is to see away from that if you are not born of sin, you do not need to be saved, right? Mm-hmm. And the moment you start to understand that you didn't come in of sin, you came in of intent. And this is why I go back to the hero's journey again too, because the first step in the hero's journey is the call to adventure. So that's why I said why we're here
Mm.
is that's the first step. It's
Yeah.
adventure. And it is to be, do, and see it all.
Yeah.
To experience, to be, do, and experience it all. And within this universal construct, which I believe is only one, because there's infinite life outside of this universal construct. Within this one, we chose to experience separation. So I believe the point of this universal journey that we're in is to experience separation and then to and ultimately return. But it's that first step is adventure.
Yeah, but like,
we've lost that in our day-to-day life now too. Like,
yeah, but the flip side of that is like you can frame it as we're here to experience separation, or we're here to rediscover wholeness. Right? We're all on this journey to rediscover wholeness, to learn more of ourselves, to unlock wholeness once again, and not live in this imbalance, not live in this separation, not live in this black and white flipping between ideologies and dogmas or whatever it might be. We're here to experience, live it, know it all, integrate it.
Yeah. But separation is the adventure too.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's leaving the ship, right? It's leaving the home. It's leaving the nest. It's going on a journey. Like, and we're all journeymen. We're all moving through time and space as created beings, on some kind of adventure. So, man, that makes sense to me.
But see, this is why I think they put the mimic up of what we're doing, what we're meant to be doing. Because like I use Trump as the example too, because he's playing the hero. And his path began, his call to adventure was when he went down the escalator. They always refer to, this was the moment I decided to go down the escalator. And it just clicked to me one day. I'm like, of course he had to go down the escalator. He couldn't be an elevator. He couldn't be up the escalator.
When's this? When?
Down.
Yeah, what's the context of that? Because I've seen that around too, but I don't know much about it.
So this was in 2015 where Trump said, I announced that I'm running for president, right? So that was, but he never refers to as the day I decided to run. He says the day I went down the escalator. And it sat with me for years. And I'm like, why do they keep mentioning this escalator? And I'm like, one day I went, oh, that's it. Because that's the beginning of his call to adventure. So they're showing you the archetype of the story, which is
the descent.
It's the descent, because to go on the spiritual path is not to rise. It is to go down.
Yeah.
And I think this is why Trump always does the tip of the spear too, right? He always holds his hands like that because he's showing you that he's going into dissension. Now, I'm not saying Trump's good or bad. I'm saying they're placing this archetype with the subconscious programming into our psyche to tell us that he's going on this journey. Right?
When you say they in this context, who are you referring to?
Yeah. There you go.
They,
part 2, 3, part 4.
You know what? The more I look into like Trump and how well sorted and programmed the steps that he has taken, and not just him, but like so many other things like world events and cyclic times, it truly to me looks like it's a simulated blueprint.
Yeah, but this is like what I struggle with, because like,
so is Trump even a conscious, how conscious is this person, or is he completely running off subliminal mind control programs to play out this role of the hero?
But like,
and I'm not saying he's the hero, by the way. I'm saying he's the archetype that
I get it. But like, organic reality has simulative like qualities as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like when people say like simulation, like very often, like when I think about, people like Jason Brashears talk about it, etc., it's like, but it's almost like we're just describing the qualities of nature, the qualities of this reality that we live within. But I think some people get the notion, and I don't know where you stand on it, that this is something that's separate. It's something that we're trapped within. It's like a prison kind of system. But at the same time, like organic reality, like we know has simulation-like qualities. Like there's no coincidences on this journey.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you differentiate the two? And like I said before, with the holographic nature, if what we're picking up in the hologram is that the simulation or the organic? Well, it's got to be both, because one's mimicking and mirroring the other anyway. So again, it says exactly what you said, that if the artificial is simulated, so must the organic be simulated, right?
Yeah. And regardless of what's real or what's true or not, fucking go on an adventure. You know what I mean?
You know, like we're in this like Pluto and Aquarius cycle now.
Yeah.
Like just to talk like repeating time cycles. So you had the French Revolution that happened in the last one, and like look what's kind of kicking off with France now. Then you had the American Revolution, and it's this is the next 18 years. So as if America's not going to go through a revolution in that time. You had the Industrial Revolution, and now they're speaking about the fourth Industrial Revolution. So this is within the 236-year cycle. It's clearly a repeating time pattern. And in that last Pluto and Aquarius, this is when supposedly Australia was colonized. And now we've had all these things come back up with the Indigenous again too. So the more you look at history and these repeating time cycles, you're like, it's just bizarre, because we think we're living in the most pivotal, crazy time of all, and maybe we are, but how many times have we done it?
Yeah. But how many times have we done it with this tech?
And how familiar is it? Like I remember again in the code time, it wasn't as if I remembered something similar. I felt so intuitively I've been here before. And my lesson for me, it was like, I'm back here again because I didn't learn sovereignty.
Huh. Yeah. So like when we talk about, so you believe there potentially exists like an inorganic simulation. Like, am I right or wrong on that?
So yeah, when I was speaking before about this false god that solicits worship, so it solicits worship on the light side, and it looshes fear and all that on the dark side. So ultimately, this, if you go into like the Gnostic sort of style, like the Ouroboros and the Demiurge, and that it plays out long form time cycles where it shifts from dark and then it goes over to light, and then it just keeps rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that is what the simulation is. The simulation is the counterfeit spirit to true creation, and that we exist within both.
Yeah. But like what's the genesis of the artificial? Like, is it alien? Like, what is it?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? This is like, I mean, the Gnostics talk about, they talk about the void. I know there's other tribal cultures that speak about the void as well too. I went out in Central Australia a few years ago, and one of the elders out there told me the story of the whale. And this blew me away too. After looking at the Gnostics text too, and then they speak about Sophia, then that it falls from this void. So they split the universe into two, and it's like that mirroring effect. So they're both the same. And what this tribal elder told me, he said it was the story of the whale, and they had this void, and that the whale crashes past the void and hits this square object, and out pop the sun, the earth, and the moon. So it was very, very similar. But what he was saying too is the whale represents the intuition, and it represents the intuition with the mother, right? And obviously the whale comes from the water. And again, this is the lowest point in the hero's journey. Again, too, this is spoken of as the whale, or the belly of the whale. And he said that when this alignment happens in the stars, that this is when the whale sings. And he said, this is the awakening. This is what it is we are connecting our intuition and our heart to that energy that they refer to as the whale. But it keeps always going back to water too, because, like everything's, even before the hologram, it's all based off waveform, right? So everything's just waveform information fields until we perceive it, and then it becomes matter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that like, it's weird when you hear these like tribal stories that are being told just through oral history for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And then they mimic these texts found in Egypt that are supposed to be 2,000 years old. You
Yeah.
know?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. You know, like, maybe it's like necessary, you know?
Yeah, well, I think it's intention, right? So even if we're in the simulation, we're in it with intent.
Yeah.
Again, and it's not even sin again that you chose to come into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, who knows? But to me, it's to know what sovereignty is. And this is why this is how I see, like with the Middle East kind of stuff playing out now too, that they want to create this third world war. So they want to create mass destruction, and then they're going to offer a form of unity, and possibly the whole false messiah kind, the messiah kind of thing. And that you could see how that could play out especially with like biblical prophecy and stuff, and it's all playing out with with biblical prophecy. So how many people, if you're this imposter God, right? Why wouldn't you play out this form of coming to unity and then offer a Messiah to keep people trapped in that? But then it's telling me again too, that if everything's a mimic, then the natural universe must also be coming to a point of unity. And that's kind of how I see it now too, that you're going to be offered, there's going to be an offering of like love and false love. And it's up to people to differentiate what the two is. And like, I think the true love is within nature, like the true intuition, the easiest way to connect is just in nature, because they're going to play out all this external stuff is like, it's all to draw your attention and your emotion towards stuff that's not really happening in front of you, right? Whereas like the beautiful tree is just sitting there wanting to be interacted with, but you're too distracted by other things.
Yeah. What a trippy fucking experience this is.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I think that's it. That's the greatest mystery, man. You know, you started with those questions, you know, who are we, why are we here, etc. And it's a constant mind fuck. And at the same time, it's so exciting just to be in a body and to be alive and to feel the things that I feel and to go on this adventure. Like, I love it, man. You know, I don't need to answer every fucking question. I'm okay with I'm okay with the not knowing and just, you know, experiencing life moment to moment and tuning inwards and being like, well, why am I here? What am I into? What do I like to do? Who do I like to spend my time with? And just keep doing that.
Well, you know, like even after all the bullshit jargon that I've just said, now like you kind of because you go real deep in this stuff and then you just pull it all away, right? And it's like, well, what are the most simplest things? It's like, yeah, it's like connecting with people. You're like, clearly this global conspiracy, it's all about disconnecting people. That's the number one thing it's doing, and I don't see that working, because ultimately this is what we are. We're all co-creating. So we're just here to connect. It's the most basic shit, right? Like, be interested in other people, like experience new things, get out, get outside. Just be happy that you're alive every day. Like,
yeah, that's a miracle, man. However we got here, that's the coolest thing, that we are here, that I know that I exist. Now, to what degree and why, simulation, etc., blah, blah, blah. I'm here, man. We're having this conversation. I'm looking at my screen. You're on the screen. Joel's on that screen. We're dialoguing. You know, it's cool.
Yeah.
And like, do we have to know too? Like, is that
no?
Why do we have to know? Like Max Egan used to always say, like, why we got to cut the tree down to see how old it is? He's like, why can't you just look at the tree? Why can't you just appreciate the tree? No, we've got to cut it down. We've got to know everything. And like, I've been a massive victim of that. I had like just an obsession. I wanted to know everything. And it's come to the point now where like, I don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you, man. My desire to know and keep going. Like, it's just different. I kind of want to like go cut my fruit tree and play with my dog, you know?
Well, what's your motivation for the podcast now too? Like how much further do you want to go with it? Is it just enjoyment of having these conversations and also a duty to share as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even when we started, you think about the title, Here for the Truth, man. We're here for it. It's not, we know the truth. And I know I've said that before, and Joel said that before. Like, we want to have these conversations. We want to connect. We want people who align with us, who feel drawn to our energies on this fucking adventure called life, and go, hey, listen, I want to hang out. I want to have these conversations. I want to listen to these guys talk. We just want to have cool conversations, because we don't know everything. I don't know everything. Like, there's some of the stuff you talk about, I haven't gone down those exact rabbit holes, but it's cool to have this conversation. It's cool to be like, hey, what are you into? And so we just keep doing that. But and the reason for this platform as well is like to empower people to dive into that inner truth, that inner world, that universe within, and to truly discover, why are you here? Who are you? You know, what can you create and produce and bring into the world? How can you align with people that share your values as well? You know, like we're not doom and gloomers, you know, it's never been our MO to
But I
scare
think-
people and to use fear to like, here, watch our podcast. We're going to scare you, but we have the answers. So keep listening and buy our products.
Yeah, I think the root of most people's like issues or angst towards life is a lack of an appropriate creative outlet, you know. And for me, like this podcast is just a synthesized expression of our unique energy brought out into reality. And I think when we're not exerting our creative energy appropriately, then that's when we get distracted. That's when we get depressed. That's when we fall into self-sabotage. But when you know yourself truly as a creative being, and you transform those inner dreams into outward manifestations, and you recognize the miracle of that, then you want to keep creating. You know, like this is joy for me. Like this is the expression of my love as a being who knows himself, knows his power, and is happy to be in the world and put that out. And the bonus is that this gets to impact people in a very powerful way. So yeah, man, it's like it's both. It's within and without. Like this is the without, and I fucking love the without as well. You know.
Yeah. And having this no, you go.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's really good to be retrospective too, like, because like how much have you guys spoken about like when you first started to where you've come to now? And I don't know, even like I look back some of my old videos, like I can't even look at it. I'm sure
Episode 1 looks like it was fucking recorded on a camcorder in 1987. Like
and we look like 10 years younger. The angles of the cameras are weird. We're a couple young bucks, you know, that like it was really funny. You know, it's sweet too to look back on that, you know, and just to show you like the creative journey that you have to begin. You know, you have to begin and you have to keep tweaking and have imperfect action and stay on that Siddhartha road of discovery.
Yeah, man. Like us hitting record on episode 1 was Trump going down the escalator. You know, like that's the call to adventure.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say. Well, you know, for me, it was a real fear barrier, and like I made a video out of just absolute necessity. I felt like I've just got to get this off my chest.
Yeah,
and so I never posted it anywhere. Like my first 10 videos, I never once posted them to let anyone know. I was just putting them out there. And then one of them like blew up, and I don't even know how people found it. And then I went into panic mode. I'm like, oh shit, because I was still teaching. Then I'm like, oh fuck, my employer's going to see this. Oh fuck, I'm out. I've been ousted. But I found that like it was a nice little fear barrier to overcome. It's actually helped me, without speaking about other people, like having a duty to the truth and being able to speak my truth. But it's helped me a lot to I just strip fear barriers of one of the biggest ones that people have, that, you know, is the fear of what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And how much it controls us, right? And how much it's controlled. I didn't realize how much it controlled me my whole life. And then I'm like, fuck, I care so much what other people think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's completely removed, but like it's been.
Yeah, there has to be the balance. There has to be the balance. Again, obviously I care what people think to some degree, you know, like in a way that's rational. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to just go and just like punch a baby in the face. You know what I mean? Like obviously I'm just saying, like,
well, no, it's the vanity.
Yeah.
The vanity side, or like the side of wanting to be popular, or, you know, that shit that comes from childhood. But ultimately the people that I care about, are being liked by, or being a good person to, is my family and friends. And everyone else is like, well, I don't really care what, you know, if you have a desire to be popular, well, fuck.
Yeah, that whatever that popularity, it should be the the side effect of you living your truth and doing the things that excite you.
The desire should be to be real, right?
Yeah.
And if you can be open and real, and it means you're not hiding from yourself. It means you're not hiding from the world. It means there's power in that. There's immense power in that in the person who is able to, I guess, share authentically and really not give a fuck what's projected upon them as a result.
And also, how do you draw in the people, like community and people that are meant for you if you're just hiding in the shadows, and if you're just worried about what people think and you're not speaking your mind? I mean, again, Joel and I met online less than 3 years ago. We're coming up to that 3-year date where I looked on Instagram at that request section and I saw a message come through, and Joel sent me a message, and I was like, who's this dude? Oh, he seems cool as fuck, and wow, let's have a little dialogue. 3 years later, and because we answered that call for each one of us and we happened to come together and be aligned, like what's happened in the last 3 years, the relationships that have been built, the communities that have been built, the friendships that have been built, like I don't, like, anyone who disowned me or thought I was some crazy person, you think I'd give a fuck? Like, I have the most incredible people in my life right now. And that's what happens when you go on the hero's journey. It's not always easy, but when you answer that call and you live your truth and you know who you are and you speak it out and you live it in existence, like you attract the right people, the right situations, the right opportunities.
Yeah, that's true reality creation, in my opinion. Like the throat is a center of creation. Like this is how we move through the jungle of life. This is how we signal who we are, what we stand for, what we value. This is how we deter, pests and predators and those that we don't want in our energy field. It's like, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is amazing, isn't it? Oh, it's made me think too, yeah, because I mean, like people, like I remember watching Max Egan like 15 years ago more, and then like I went and saw this lady, and she goes, "Oh, you're gonna." I see you go around his house in a few months. I said, "Oh, how's that gonna happen?" And like 3 months later, I'm chilling in his shed. I'm like, "Yeah, it's just I'm like, I created this. How did this happen?" And I like this has happened over and over again.
Dude, so many instances of that.
The conference I've been running with Madeline, we've been doing for the last year, and we're the same thing. We just kind of met online a few years ago, and now I've connected with all her people, and she's connected with my people, and it's this whole, you can see, even if we are all these little universal nodes just bobbing around here, you can see like something happened in like that 2020 period, right? And it was just a huge breaking up. People have transversed the globe. People, there's huge movements still taking place.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know how much this is like energetically or what's going on, but I'm still seeing it. People are moving. Relationships and friendships are constantly changing. But it's been a horrible time for some people. But for me, it's been absolute bliss.
Yeah,
because I never would have thought that I'd meet these incredible people, and it all came from what we said before, was just the ability to speak and be myself. Like probably for the first time in my life that I really like publicly, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be myself, and it's been nothing but rewards.
Yeah, I mean, the meaning of apocalypse is to reveal, right? And what was revealed was a very opportune crossroads for many people, and for those who decided to live their truth, walk their path authentically. They've been reaping the fruits since 2020 of everything that comes with that, but for those, who continue to walk an inauthentic path, like I've got no doubt it's been a tough time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Dale, man, absolutely loved having you on, my friend. I'm so glad we got to connect in real time and have this conversation. Can you just let our audience know like a bit more about how they can get in contact with, the content that you create, what you offer, etc.?
Yeah. Like I've just mentioned before that I've been running Sky Earth conference with Madeline Doherty. We just finished up our second round. I think we'll probably be going again in April or May.
Cool.
So you can go to skytoearthacademy.com. And besides that, you can follow me on Telegram. It's just Dale H. don't know what the rest of it is, like T.me or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
Dale H. And yeah, that's about it. Sorry, Rumble as well. Rumble's just Dale Holmes, BitChute and all the rest of it. I haven't been that active doing videos and that for a while because I've been in Thailand, just worrying about getting fit and having a good time pretty much. But yeah, hopefully do a lot more. Might be even cool to get you guys on next conference we run.
Yeah,
Sure,
bro,
man.
we'd love to for sure, man.
I
Yeah, just
saw
let
you
me
had
know.
David Whitehead on too, because he came and presented. Not the last one, the first one we did. He came and presented. He was awesome.
He's a legend, man. I mean, he's been on our platform 5 times.
Be 6
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
he's
6
not
tomorrow.
he's not against tomorrow.
Yeah. You'd appreciate it. We did our first iteration of something called the round table, where we bring, minds together to have conversations. Sometimes there's a debate, sometimes it's just, and we did our first one was with David Whitehead and Gavin Nascimento, and we just talked about being a truth warrior because they're both their monikers. But we got into Trump a little bit, which I think you might enjoy, and kind of shared 2 sides of the debate,
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. But yeah, man.
But yeah, I mean,
Pleasure connecting.
David's great. He's got so much great information and research, but he's just a great guy too. He's just a really
amazing
nice
human
dude.
being.
He's got really nice energy.
Love that dude.
Salt of the earth guy, and like just such a broad range of deep information. It's like so diverse, the things that he can rattle on. Like, when I think about, fucking, I'm projecting upwards, like top of the totem pole. Like, man, David's fucking right there for sure.
You got to meet. Have you met him in the flesh yet? And then he's just another bear bum in the shower, and then you'll stop projecting.
I hear you, man.
Hey, dude, just quickly, man, is there like a final sentiment you kind of want to leave those listening with before we hit end on this?
Oh, what should I say? Look, I've been a bit word scrambled all morning. I'm running off 0 sleep. I think, but just the theme of what I said before is intuition. When the head's starting to get in the way of something you really want to do, you feel it and you know it to your core, then just act on that. I think that if more people start doing that, because we're so concerned about externally changing the world, and the more that you can just break simple patterns and walk a new path by following your intuition, and let the head and the intellect merge with the intuition instead of just being led by one. I think that's the main giveaway.
Love it, man. Dude, thanks so much once again. And everyone else, thank you for listening. Take care.
Guys, cheers.
You'll punch a baby in the face?
I knew you were going to say that. I was just trying to highlight.
We're
that,
projecting violence against babies on this.
No, I was trying to highlight this idea, because I didn't know where he was coming from until he communicated afterwards. But often, people go, I don't give a fuck what people think, and I don't want to care what people think. And it's like, well, there's a balance there. Yeah, obviously, like, we're social beings. You're not just gonna go around beating people up. So the first thing that came to my mind was well, you're gonna obviously you're gonna care what people think. You're not gonna just go punch a baby.
So many analogies you could have pulled from. Not just gonna run naked down the street. Not just gonna.
But listen, I like to be something that's really blunt. Oh yeah, obviously don't do that. That you should care what people think. I don't know, bro. I'm impulsive. If the things come to me, I say it sometimes. All right. Joel's trying to censor me right now. He's not here for the truth. He's here for the censorship.
Oh, that's not true. I'm just questioning.
I'm fucking with you. But I'm gonna start laughing because I'm looking over at you and you're smiling and laughing, and I'm like, well,
Yeah. I was like, that's definitely something that someone without children would say.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that could
you even picked a baby over dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, shit. I do have a dog, so that could be why. You could be right.
Right. That was another great conversation, man. Another thought-provoking, insightful dialogue. I love the laid back, down to earth nature of Dale. I love getting Aussies on this podcast and getting to rap. And bro, he's just sitting in his caravan, doing an overnighter.
Yeah, he's like, I drove 16 hours and I didn't sleep, and let's have a chat, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I mean, again, just respect the people that explore these subjects and question the status quo and stay curious.
Yeah. And what I love is those who can make the simulation argument and have the simulation conversation from an empowered perspective and from an empowered point of view, and with the recognition that you are this incredibly powerful human being that ultimately is like you mentioned, which I agree with, is a compression of everything that exists, of the entire universe, of all the archetypes and all the expressions and all the qualities and all the traits. And how do you become the conscious director of that ship? How do you gain access to that and utilize that immense power appropriately? And I think that's what we're all here to learn. And that's what we're all in this journey together for. So yeah, guys, thank you once again for listening. Rise Above the Herd, round 9. Doors are officially open. Spots are already filling up. And again, this is limited to 15 to 20 spots per cohort. We like to run an intimate container here because our people get deep, vulnerable, and have awesome breakthroughs. I think you guys know what that's about by now, but this is our 8-week transformational group coaching program for truth seekers to go live their dopest life. Ultimately, that's what we're interested in offering. So riseabovetheherd.co, link in the show notes. We'd love to see you in our container and get deep. Take care.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time, they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution.